Welcome back, everyone. We're about to take another deep dive. Today, we're going to unlock some secrets. Well, maybe not secrets exactly, but tricks, I guess you could say. Tricks to sounding more confident and fluent when you're just, chatting with people in English.
Casual conversation.
Exactly. And the really cool thing is that we're going to be using a guide that was specifically made for English language learners, like, people learning English.
Right.
And it has some real gems, like some seriously good stuff in here.
Yeah, I have to say, I was really impressed. Some of these expressions, they're so common. For native speakers, we just use them without even thinking. But when you stop and really look at them, they can tell you a lot about the culture.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Like, they're little windows into, like, how English speakers think and interact with the world. Okay, so let's just jump right in, shall we? Let's say you're at, I don't know, a conference or a party, and you run into someone. You know you've met them before, but their name, gone. Poof. Vanished from your brain. We've all been there, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's that moment of panic. Your mind goes completely blank.
It's the worst. But our guide actually has a really slick move for dealing with this.
It does. It suggests kind of steering the conversation towards exchanging information, contact info. You could say something like, hey, it was great chatting last week, or whenever it was. Do you have a business card? Or, let's connect on LinkedIn. And then, boom, you got their name without having to admit you totally forgot.
So smooth. I love that. I'm totally using that. It's like a social ninja move.
Oh.
Okay, speaking of awkward encounters, our guide also talks about this phrase, in a bit of a hurry. And it made me realize something about English speakers.
What's that?
We love to be indirect.
Right.
Like, instead of just coming right out and saying, I'm busy, which, can sound a little abrupt.
Yeah, a bit rude even.
Right. We say, in a bit of a hurry. It's like, it softens the blow. Makes it more polite somehow.
Exactly. It's all about maintaining that polite facade, even when, you're running late or stressed out.
Totally. And, it's so versatile. Our guide gives all these different situations where you can use it. Like, you can say, can you drive a little faster? I'm in a bit of a hurry. Or, if you need to excuse yourself from a conversation, you could say, I'd love to chat, but I'm in a bit of a hurry right now. See? It's amazing how much you can say with just a few words.
It really shows how subtle language choices can really shape how people interact with each other. It's fascinating.
Okay, ready for another phrase that might sound a little weird at first?
Hit me with it.
Slip my mind. It's how English speakers say they forgot something.
And again, it's that indirectness. Instead of saying, I forgot, which can sound a bit careless, slip my mind, kind of makes it sound like the forgotten item was just, I don't know, temporarily misplaced in your brain. Like, it'll turn up eventually.
Right, like it just wandered off for a bit.
Exactly. It's a way to soften the blow of forgetting,
Yeah.
Make it sound less like your fault.
And it says here that you can use it for all sorts of things, like forgetting to answer an email or even missing a birthday.
Oh, yeah. I use that one all the time.
Me too. It's like the perfect excuse. Okay, speaking of forgetting things, I have to make a confession. I'm terrible with names. Terrible. But guess what? Our guide has a phrase for that too.
Let me guess. Terrible with.
Bingo! You can use it for anything you're bad at, like directions, technology, remembering faces, you name it.
I love how this phrase uses humor and self-deprecation.
Yeah.
It's like you're acknowledging a weakness, but you're not taking yourself too seriously. It's so common in English-speaking cultures.
Yeah, and it kind of instantly creates this connection with whoever you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's terrible with something. It's like a universal language of shared imperfections. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Have you ever noticed how English speakers often say, how's it going? Instead of, how are you?
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's much more casual, isn't it?
Exactly. It's just a tiny change in phrasing, but it makes a huge difference in the vibe. It's like instantly more relaxed and friendly.
How's it going?
Just kind of breaks down those social barriers,
Totally. And speaking of first impressions, let's talk about location-based phrases. This is where it gets really interesting. We're going to dive into the subtle differences between around here, around the corner, and around there.
Oh, yeah. These are tricky, even for native speakers sometimes. They all relate to location, but they have these subtle nuances of proximity. It's like, how close is close, right?
Yeah.
So around, it's kind of a general area, right? Like if you were looking for, let's say, a coffee shop, you could ask someone, is there a good coffee shop around here?
Right. And then you have around the corner, which to me, that always sounds like it's super close, like literally on the next street.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, my office is just around the corner from here. It implies a very short distance.
Okay, and then around there,
Hmm.
that one's a little trickier, isn't it? Yeah, it can be. It suggests a location that's a bit further away, but still kind of in the same general area. Like, you could say, I used to live around there, but I moved a few years ago. It's not specific.
It's interesting how these little words can make such a big difference in meaning. You know, as we're going through all these everyday phrases, it's really striking me how much they reveal about the culture.
Oh, totally.
Hmm.
Language is so much more than just, grammar and vocabulary. It reflects how people think, how they view the world.
Right. Like take that whole thing about indirect language, saying in a bit of a hurry instead of I'm busy or slip my mind instead of I forgot. I think it shows that English speakers really value politeness and like avoiding confrontation.
Yeah. It's almost like a dance,
Yeah.
where you're trying to get your message across without being too direct, too forceful.
Right. And even phrases like terrible with, which on the surface sound kind of self-deprecating, I think they can actually be a way of building rapport,
Yeah.
connecting with people.
Absolutely. Because it's relatable. Everyone has things they're terrible with. It's like a shared human experience.
It's all about finding that balance, right? Between expressing yourself clearly and being, well, polite and appropriate.
Exactly. And that's what makes mastering a language like English so challenging. And so rewarding, too. It's not just about learning the rules. It's about understanding the culture, the unspoken rules, the subtle ways that language shapes how people interact.
This deep dive is really making me think about how I use language, even in my own native tongue. Like, I'm seeing things I've always taken for granted in a whole new light.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like you start to become aware of all these little nuances that you never really noticed before.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you, our listener?
Well, first of all, I hope you're feeling empowered. Because seriously, these everyday phrases are like, I don't know, secret codes to unlock a more confident, more natural way of speaking English. Yeah. And the best part is you don't have to memorize lists and lists of vocabulary. Just start paying attention. Notice how these phrases are used in real life, in movies, podcasts, books, even just eavesdropping on conversations.
Right. It's like having a free English lesson happening all around you. And remember, don't be afraid to try these phrases out in your own conversations. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
Exactly. And if you make mistakes, who cares? That's how we learn. Just keep practicing, keep experimenting, and you'll get there.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge. Try using at least one of these phrases in a real conversation this week and just pay attention. Notice how people react.
Yeah.
What you learn from the experience.
Love it. And as you start incorporating these phrases into your everyday speech, I want you to think about something. How does language affect our social interactions and the impressions we make on others?
That's a great question. Because the words we choose, they don't just convey information. They can express emotions, build relationships, shape the way people see us.
It's powerful stuff. And the more you understand about language, the more effectively you can use it to connect with people, to get your message across, to, make your mark on the world.
It really is. It's like we've been given this decoder ring for understanding how humans talk to each other.
Yeah. And the more we learn, the more we realize, wow, there's so much more to uncover. Language is deep, man.
It really is. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into natural English, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Right, lay it on me.
Language, it's not static, it's constantly changing. New words pop up, old words get new meanings. It's like a living, breathing thing.
It is, which means there's always something new to discover, to learn. You never really reach the end,
Exactly. So go out there, experiment with these phrases, listen to how people talk in movies and books, on the street, and just be open to those aha moments when you suddenly understand something new about how English works.
Yes. And most importantly, have fun with it. Learning a language, it shouldn't be a chore. It should be like an adventure, a way to connect with people, to see the world differently, to express yourself in a way that feels, authentically you.
Beautifully said. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into everyday English. Until next time, happy language learning.